I am Terrie Curry, and this is Awesomism Book Club, Session 3, Round 2. And this evening I have with me Karilyn Gomez from California and Joan Thorn from New Zealand. Joan, would you like to say hello to everybody?
Oh, I'd love to. Hi, everyone. Yes, hello from sunny but cold New Zealand. And I'm excited to be here for this awesome Awesomism book club to review chapters 5 and 6. I'm excited because it's all about energy, and it's a great opportunity to learn more about how our kids are operating.
Great. How about you, Karilyn?
It's nice to be back for another session and looking forward to our discussion.
Okay, great. Tonight we'll be talking about chapters 5 and 6 from the book Awesomism, written by Suzy Miller. We are all her level 3 practitioners, and so we've read the book and we work with the children, and are here just to discuss with you anything you'd like to talk about. I have a Q&A chat that you can ask questions, so we'd love to make this a discussion. So what I've done, I've prepared like 3 questions or topics of discussion for chapters 5 and 3 chapter 6, and then we can just open it up, and if the other panelists have anything else, then we can finish up with that. So in chapter 5, what I found interesting in the beginning, Suzy's really preparing people to start thinking about the children based on energy, saying it's really important to see them as vibrational beings first when you are concerned with their behavior. Could you give us some of your ideas on that, Karilyn?
Sure, I think that is it's the key to everything, that these are not only vibrational beings, but high vibrational beings. And to just look at a surface behavior doesn't solve anything, and it doesn't give you any clues as to why that behavior is happening. So it behooves us, it puts us in the position of stepping back, of observing that behavior, and asking the question, what's beneath that? Looking at our own energy, how do we react to it? Do we react to it? Do we respond to it? So it all comes back to energy. It's like that's the basis of everything.
Great. And Joan, what do you have to say about that?
Well, you know, it's like I was trying to think of some examples here. You know, it's like in comparison to our children, and we talk about vibrational energy, but it's like compared to them, we have tunnel vision. Compared to them, we only see things like this. And our kids see it like, well, I can't see my hands, but they're going way out. And our kids have a huge amount of vision, and they take into consideration so much more about life. They take into consideration more about conversations, and as a matter of fact, they can even feel our internal energy, what's going on inside of us, our pain, our sorrows, our joy, our gladness. And so when they interact with anything or anyone, they are taking into consideration a huge amount of information, I'll call it. But really, it's on an energetic level. It's sort of like we run on a 12-volt electrical current, and they run on a 500-volt electrical current. So they can take in and absorb way more about every single incident in life. And so when we talk about their high vibrational sensitivity, I mean, really, it's hard to imagine all the things that they have going on around one incident, just one incident. And because of that, you know, it's like they're buzzing on all kinds of levels, if you want to call it that. Anyway, yeah, they're high vibrational, all right. And it's a challenge for the tunnel vision ones to even consider it.
Okay, great. Thank you, Joan. You know, I am going to. I'm not sure why the camera keeps flipping back to me, but I'm going to plug in some speakers and see if it's going to work a little bit better. So,
Yeah, your voice is. Yeah, your
It's
voice
a little warbly.
yeah, hang on a second.
You go ahead.
Yeah, Joan, when you were talking about, you know, how we have that tunnel vision, not only is it tunnel vision, but it's like, it's the mental part. We see it so linearly, and they're just way, I loved it when she said they're learners beyond time.
Yeah, you know, and Caroline, like, I was talking to my sister the other day, and she has two kids. One is a little Buddha, and the other is a no-nonsense, highly sensitive child. And I keep saying, when we talk about both of them, I keep, you know, I kept using words like, yeah, but they're, you know, when she would tell me stories, he's so highly sensitive. And then I talk about, and she talk about her younger one, who is like incredibly different in behavior, but still so highly sensitive. And I finally got it that she was a bit confused about. I was using the same terminology for both, and they are, you know, black and white, hot and cold, absolutely different kids, you know.
Yeah.
So it's both of them take into consideration so much more, but in different arenas, I guess. It's the best way to say it. You're quite right. We have our mental side of our brain operating, and they have so much more. And if you put those
Exactly, that's, yeah.
You know, with the one who is incredibly agile and absolutely no fear, and the other one who is hesitant, you know, reading and watching to get a feel for, you know, how to operate, but so heartfelt. I didn't think the eldest had like his heart. He was so out there and bullshit. And
It's really wonderful to experience that range, huh?
Yeah.
And appreciate both of them so much.
They are extensive in their energy. And you're right. You know, it's not linear. Absolutely not.
Great. I went in and put the speakers in, but it's still flipping back and forth. I'm not sure what's going on. But anyway, we'll proceed on. Thanks for carrying on without me. Anyway, just to kind of keep it on track here. So the second area, Joan, I think you had already brought up a little bit, was Suzy talks about these kids being learners beyond time, really right brain processing. So she says they have all the possibilities and frequencies available to them, whereas we have just what is right in front of us and live within the limits that imposes. So I think you touched on that a little bit already, but Karilyn, you want to begin, make some comments, and we'll switch to Joan?
You know, we just don't even have a clue to the possibilities that these kids are presenting. I mean, we get hints of it, but just, you know, just for us, when we were talking about switching from being linear and mental is a challenge, and it opens up possibilities. But these kids just go so far beyond that. I loved what she said about observing and letting them lead us, because then it begins to take us into that realm of learners beyond time. That linear kind of learning of past, present, future doesn't exist, and it does. It opens up a world that we have not even imagined before. And I love the question, what else is possible? Because we are certainly beginning to find out. We're getting inklings of that with these kiddos. And each question takes it just a little bit deeper, a little bit broader. So.
Yes, and just what you said about just letting them lead, that really defies all the traditional concepts of parenting. So it's not easy. It's not easy for people when they first read Suzy's book or become familiar with even these types of children that they can take that, because it's just, there's a lot of pressure and a lot of a very strong belief system that the parent should be the one that leads, should know what the child needs, and really shouldn't be the one that the child is listening to the child. So, Joan, what do you have to say?
Well,
go ahead, Karilyn. Finish.
I may have lost my train of thought.
Okay. Well, you know, I totally agree. We have, for lack of better words, come from a way of operating and a sort of a structure to allow us to rock around in this world. And our kids have no concept about that. Well, or shall I say, that structure that we have become accustomed to is so limiting. And through our upbringings, and I'm not talking just about us, but, you know, sort of all the way down the line, my parents, my grandparents, that structure is operating from our left brain or our mental brain. And we haven't really had the opportunity nor the encouragement to operate from our right side, which is our creative side, which is, as Karilyn was alluding to, where potential and possibilities are. And if you can imagine, our kids really don't know much about the left brain, and they operate only from potential and possibility. Their scope is so wide and so all-encompassing, and ours is very, very narrow because we look for the logical way of operating, and they're looking for a creative way. They are not looking for, they are. So no wonder we don't get it. I love Bill Taylor's A Stroke of Insight, and I know it's been around forever. But, you know, I've watched it many times because I've been using that YouTube scripting and presentations, and so every time I watch it, I get more out of it because it talks about what happens when your left brain, mental brain shuts down, what happens when the right brain opens up. It's like, wow, so different. Anyway, so, I don't know, does that answer your question, Terrie?
Yeah, that gives me a kind of a wide range of just the topic in general. But I guess my question would be, does it work, or has it really ever worked for a child, I mean for a parent, to always lead the child? It's a belief, but has that really ever worked? And so, Joan, you raised 3 boys. Did that work?
Well, no, absolutely not. I was shell-shocked, especially when my kids were born, because all 3 of them absolutely pushed the boundary. They could not be controlled. They did not care whether they were ostracized for what they said. They spoke the truth, and of course that wasn't very appropriate in many cases because it caused embarrassment. They totally were straight shooters right from the hip, and they totally didn't fit anything that I was aware of, nor was in the books that I was reading. Now, granted, my eldest is 30 years old now, so that was some time ago. But I was totally shell-shocked at their lack of, well, what I would have called respect. Definitely my ability to control them. Oh my God! After a while, I was just like weak at the knees with not knowing what to do. It was the hugest. Events in my life when my 3 sons were born. And of course, they all triggered me in different ways. So, yeah, Terrie, having 3 sons and knowing what it was like, and so I'm talking, in the 80s, and oh my God, what I know now of why they were like that. They were so much more invigorated by life and wanting to explore so many nooks and crannies and so many things about life, and I just wanted them to bloody behave. That was important. Yeah, totally.
And Karilyn, I know you had 2 boys? Is that correct?
I do have 2 boys. I'm laughing the whole time with you, Joan, because absolutely the same thing. Control them? Are you kidding me? Not a
Yes,
chance. They're each different from each other, but they both know who they are, and they've always I think they've always known that. Come on,
So when you
Aaron,
tried,
you know.
when you tried, when you tried to control them, that didn't work. So how did that make you feel? Was that, yeah,
I think it made me aware pretty quickly that there was had to be another way of doing things because
oh, not me. I wish I had thought that. No way. I had guilt. I had, confusion about what kind of an inadequate
mm,
mother I was, all of those
mm,
things. Because my
mm,
kids were different than others. Or so that's what I was led to believe.
well, I think it just shows. I was only asking that because I think it just shows an evolution in the way, in consciousness, the way that this is being viewed.
well,
Is
and even though I couldn't control them, I don't think it was quite to the point certainly where it was a conscious letting them lead or not. I mean, I had to let them lead at some point, but it wasn't the first thing I wanted to do because of the old conditioning of the parent is guiding. So I think it was
yeah.
certainly a learning process, but it was one that they made sure that I had lots of opportunities to learn.
Well, the third, that kind of leads into the third discussion for Suzy says the reality of their level of functioning is what we are striving for while still being physically connected. This is really the reality of no time. So as far as these kids on the spectrum, this is a way of operating that's quite new for the masses for sure. So any comment on that? I know we've discussed it to a certain extent, but any other
Well,
comment?
the whole purpose is that being that bridge of raising our awareness, our vibration, so that we can have some inkling from whence they come. Um, and it involves being able to observe and um, get beyond the mental, get into the feeling, owning our own feelings, being aware of our feelings. So it's all about we have to let them lead because that's the only way we're going to see it. Because otherwise, it's the old conditioning coming in from a time and a way that doesn't work.
Absolutely. Like, I mean, when you think about it, we got conditions that have to fit in and belong. Somebody had set some criteria and rules and figured out what that was. And our kids were looking for the better feeling thoughts. They were looking for the better feelings about life. It's like it was could be pretty awesome. And so in their quest to find the better feeling thought, they weren't going to conform to what had been considered to us the way of operating. I mean, when I think of some of the things like, my kids had no fear, for example, and they were climbing trees and they were exploring nature to a degree that, I sort of been led to believe could potentially be harmful, and I was responsible for their welfare, so no, I couldn't let them be doing those sorts of things in nature or whatever. Or, it just, they really, really did have a way better handle on being more aligned to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I was concentrating on what I had heard and planted in my mental brain about what was appropriate for the parent to do.
Mm-hmm.
And they were running on intuition and feeling more. And wow, I wish I had cottoned on to that when they were small. I would have made life so much easier.
Well, and the awesome kids, as much as we experience that, the awesome kids are just upping the volume of that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, because they're sticking their heels in. Our wonderful children that have been diagnosed with autism, they don't know anything but love,
Mm.
and that's what they strive for. And they too are having difficulty and therefore their behavior appears abnormal or disordered, which is not true. It's just that there's such a conflict and contradiction about the way we think it should be and the way they know it should be. And you know what? It's too bad that, well, for me, it wasn't sooner, and for parents, that, if we can actually look behind all that's going on, how much more we would learn, and feel and be more honest and authentic. And the kids have so much to offer us in their so-called dysfunctional behavior, which is just so not true.
Well, very good. So that we can kind of wrap up chapter 5. If that's, we can come back to it at the end, but that kind of wraps up chapter 5 for what I had to discuss. So just moving to chapter 6, kind of a cool chapter because she really gets into talking about what's practical when you have a child like this and they start doing various behaviors. So she talks about first really the child's operating on pure feeling. We're operating on a physical mental level. So she really makes us aware that words don't work that well or don't work well at all in the moment with these children when they're being overstimulated by their environment or something else is happening with them. So any comments on that, Karilyn?
I think for me, their words are not working a lot in any situation right now. They're kind of going beyond words, but they make that even more, they impress that with even more, I don't know, relevance. It goes back to what we had talked about in earlier chapters, too, that talking about words, we are so conditioned to use words, but it's the being with them that's where the connection is. Talking words, they're not going to get, so they feel no connection. We feel no connection because they don't get it, because they know that we don't get them. So it moves us has the opportunity to move us to a different place of really being with them on an energetic level, as we have talked about in the earlier sessions. So it gives us the opportunity to approach this whole thing in a totally different way from what we've been conditioned to do. We're conditioned to control, we're conditioned to use lots of words, explain to these children, our children, exactly why they should be doing something different than what they're doing. Well, the kids turn that off anyway, so there is no effect. If we can just, again, step back, calm ourselves, actually see where our response is coming from. Because so often when we want to use words, the reason we're using words is because we're coming from a place of fear, which immediately puts up a disconnect with the child. So again, if we can step back and take a deep breath, calm ourselves, really ground our own energy, then we don't need the words. It's like the words, when we were talking about mental stuff, the words are pretty mental, and they're limiting. If we can bypass the words, then that's when you tap into this vastness of feeling and the richness of it and the possibilities that really does allow a connection and allows a completely different viewpoint of the behaviors that allow us how to look at them differently and also to let go of the judgment, because so often the words have judgment around them of why you shouldn't be behaving that way, and it just opens up other possibilities.
Well, when you talk about observing as one of the possibilities, and Suzy does go into just an explanation of in that situation to really observe the sensory system of the child to get a clue for what the next step is. Again, kind of letting the child lead. So, do you have any comment on that, Terrie?
Oh yeah. Well, I know I've used this example before, but it's so just sort of epitomizes my relationship with my one son when he was young, and and also my stress levels. But I remember when he finally started school, yay! One of the teachers said to me, oh, and we were having probably a parent teacher or something. She said, your son tells me you're lying to him. And I'm thinking, you have got to be kidding me. I wouldn't intentionally lie to my kids, ever. And so when I read through the book, I realized that it could be as simple as oftentimes when he was around 4 years old, and my 3 sons were very close in age. So supper time was a very stressful time. So I got background noise coming from me. Yep. Anyway, and dinner time, and so I would be trying to get dinner going, and there was one son that was, believe it or not, had homework at 5 years old, and was, I was trying to organize things, and the stress levels were very high for me. He's banging around in the kitchen, and he would say to me, Mommy, are you okay? And I'd say, I'm fine, of course. Because for me, in my mind, I couldn't think of it. It was possibly okay to share that you weren't really okay with your child, but you still had to be some kind of, I don't know, that, but be honest from the heart. And so, yes, I did lie to him. He asked me, probably occasions he would have asked me that, especially around that time of the day. And if I had to stop and take an assessment and realize what I was feeling in my heart, and even go to him, give him a good hug because he could even ask me if I was okay. And he said, no, I'm not. I'm feeling really stressed right now. I fully believe that he would have settled right down. But as it turned out, oftentimes he would just add more chaos to the situation because what he was feeling something fairly good. It's an incongruence from my words to what I was feeling in my heart. So, that makes so much sense. Our words are really a lot sort of call. If you want to try and use it, especially with a child that is having the child's having a meltdown, or even if they're causing disruption. The best way in the world to assist them to settle down is for us to settle down. That Karilyn said, to get a grip on where they're at. Because it is brilliant that mirror is good. That mirroring, and if you're doing anything to mirror, you are lucky to find things that you don't.
Very good. Yes, and you touched on this, Joan, but going into it a little bit further, Suzy talks about a lot about being in the moment, or being in the present moment, or being present, and in ways we've touched on that. But what if someone really doesn't exactly understand what that means? Because as we're walking through our life, and you walk into your kitchen, the last thing you're thinking is that you're not present because you're in the kitchen, and so the last one saying, I'm in the kitchen. So doesn't that mean I'm present? So what does that really mean? And to me, that would be that if you're in the kitchen, you aren't thinking
in the kitchen.
And you're not even thinking that. Well, you're just aware, I guess, of the thoughts going through your head first of all, and then just that practicing the presence and being aware where your thoughts are versus where you physically are would be one way of looking at it. What do you have to say about that, Karilyn?
Gosh, being present, we are so seldom present that it's it's almost like, well, of course I'm present, but you have a gazillion other thoughts going on, so obviously you're not completely right here, observing what's around you with any kind of clarity without other thoughts confusing that. And the kids can do that. It's like, this is how they operate. So again, it's a really good reason, one of many, to really observe how they do that. And I think for me, being in the present, probably the closest experience is when I'm really engrossed in something. Nothing else matters around me. Nothing else interferes with that. It's just like I'm just right in that particular activity.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I would say that just the times I have been around children or children on the spectrum, um, to just be with them, they show me when I'm not present. I may think I'm present, but they always show me when I'm not present because they always start like testing me. And I'm like, why are they putting rocks in their mouth? You know, it's oftentimes because I'm doing, my mind is somewhere else. I may think I'm present, but like you said, Karilyn, we're so used to not being present that we almost don't know what that is. So, again, for me, when I take cues, if children usually are being disruptive around me, many times it's because I'll look at my mind and become aware that, wow, I was thinking about something completely different and I wasn't really paying attention to them. So that was,
yeah.
But, how about you, Joan?
Well, yeah, there's a couple of things that come to mind as you were speaking. Well, the first thing is that I have had an itch going on with my body, and what I realized is as soon as I get the itch, I itch. I itch it. And what I also realized is that, wait a minute, Joan. If you want to be in the now and you want to figure out what this is all about, I need to stop before I automatically revert to what the sensation feels like, and to feel it. Actually feel the sensation, be in the now with what's going on with me. And what a difference that's made. I cannot tell you. It's just like, I should have known for there right at the beginning, but I was over the process and realizing that I need to feel really that, well, what is that? This is meditation. Is there something going on related to that, you know? So now I try with everything I do to stop and being in the present. But I have another example that, there's this young girl that comes to spend time with me sometimes. And I remember when I first met him, I was a volunteer and we were doing some social activities with kids. And this child came with a caregiver, and she handed him a note. And she said, I'd like you to meet this boy. He was about 8 years old at the time. And with the note, it talked about that he had disabilities and that he's hyperactive and you have to keep an eye on him and all these things. And I'm going, oh my God, wow, this kid's trying to be a little firecracker. Anyway, so sometimes he wants them to spend time with me. And one of the things he's been doing is playing pickup sticks. I don't know if you know that game where you hold on little sticks and you just let them go, and then you have to choose one at a time and not allow another stick to move, no matter where it is landed. So there's certain strategies you can put in place. Well, I taught him how to play the game, and oh my God, it's good. But let me tell you, you can pick up to 25 sticks without causing a problem. And what I believe is that I am right there watching every single move he makes. And we are playing that game together. And he knows I'm watching. And when he does move one, he looks at me to see if I'm serious. Like I am so present with him at that time, and I am amazed at his ability to concentrate. I am amazed after all the things I've heard about his inability, that when he's doing this very specific dexterity, it takes very much concentration, to sometimes and strategic, how are you going to bring this one stick that might be overlapping another one out without moving another one. So really, being present isn't only about us. We also are absolute focus dedication to the activities they're doing without trying to plan what they need to do there, trying to plan. And look, I know that I'm sure where all the hours and the come from, but imagine if we did spend that time with the children when we were young, and we can put in place and assist them to feel that it feels like to be able to concentrate, then we stay with them so much faster down the road. And,
Great.
lots of things around.
Absolutely. And it really applies to the third point I had in chapter 6, and that was it's just exciting to read when she says that there's a high success rate for children bringing in subtle awareness, and the parents who are willing to work with their children in this manner. So not only is this just a trial and error thing, but Suzy, over working with thousands of children, really began seeing, and we see with parents that are aware of this program, or even along with children, how it's absolutely, very obvious that it's successful. We move out of the area of problems into a smooth behavior, and that's really what we're talking about. This isn't just theoretical. So, Karilyn, do you have anything to follow up on that with?
I think that's one of the things that is so exciting about this whole approach, this whole recognition, is it empowers parents to be partners with their children. It's not, and the richness of the teaching that goes back and forth, the learning that goes back and forth, is it's just one of the most. It's the part of evolution that we're experiencing right now.
How about you, Jane?
Well, what I'd like to say about this is that I've heard enough stories about kids who have been diagnosed with autism. Oh, you poor parent, you will have this child with you the rest of your life, not fitting in and not being normal and having, antisocial behaviors, blah, blah, blah. And that's not the case. When we are with that child, and when we can offer the love and the care and the attention when they're young, and work with them, there are many that are, entering the school system and no longer have the diagnosis. It is amazing what can happen. If we could understand that we need to meet them in their space first, before the time of connection. And in meeting them in their space, where they're at, in this very wide, expansive viewpoint, we are going to assist them to integrate far quicker and far better. So the tug of war, it won't work. They're gonna stay at it. Unless you dumb them down by drugging them, I guess, or whatever, but really, we allow them who they are, and they're going to take us both on a beautiful journey of awakening and awakening.
Yes, and we are familiar with this book, familiar with Another Way, but periodically I get jolted a little bit by seeing that this way is not known by everyone. And I was at a comedy club on Saturday night, and the comedian was very funny. But then he started talking about children and how he lived in the old way and really demanding that they do things the way his grandmother taught him. And it really made me realize how there is a lot of awareness that still needs to be not achieved, but just come about. And there will always be different points of view about this. So anyway, it's wonderful to discuss this book and have these ideas, and to see, like I said, to have that, Suzy, verify that high success rate, because it makes it no longer just so.
Oh, Terrie, I so agree. The Awesomism process is the most uplifting, dynamic, beautiful, loving community, embracing all behaviors. And honestly, I am just incredibly delighted to have been introduced to that book. There is no doubt about it. And to you ladies.
And also to always just be aware that this is our point of view. We've seen it work, and that we're always going to be coming up against other points of view, too.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I was there, so I get it. I know what it was like, and now I know what it can be like. Like, wow. And I am
creating life is the thing. But also to be prepared that you're not going to have everyone in the world supporting it. But,
yeah.
Anyway, well, that finishes up my points of discussion. Do you guys have another 5 minutes with anything else you want to add, or are we pretty much done for the night? Great discussion. You guys have wonderful comments. And, I guess we could talk about the weather in New Zealand if we met.
It's only noon for me today, and I'll tell you, I have the most beautiful sunshine coming through. Yeah, you know, I guess I'm hoping that by now, if others are listening, as others are listening to this, they're recognizing that really there's so much more to life, and there's so much more of love to go around. Because really, even though our children behave sometimes like kind of a radical, upsetting behavior, it is absolutely not based on anything but to offer us trying to create a new way of operating ourselves, you know, and it's about love. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, well, that wraps it up, unless, Karen, you have anything other than it.
No, I think that's a nice way to end it.
Okay, great. Then we will have the 4th session next Monday, same time, and hope to see all of you here. And we'll probably have some different practitioners or panelists that will be another great discussion. So good night, everyone.
Good night. Night, Joan. Thanks, Terrie.
Yeah, thank you.